Hey guys, it's Donnie here, and I just want to let you know that we've recently launched a content development company, and this company helps people get social content. You know you need to put out a lot of content nowadays to get engagement out there in all your social platforms. Well, we've come up with a really cool way to help you get videos, blog posts, memes, social posters, and infographics for whatever social site you need. So check us out at successchamps.us and learn more about how you can get social content for your social media.
Support for this podcast comes from Point Blank Safety Services and Blue Family Fund. Point Blank Safety Services does safety differently. We know everyone is on a journey, and we want to make sure you get where you're going safely. Professional, trained, ready. There's really no comparison. Here's why hiring Point Blank Safety for your next project will make all the difference and save you huge amounts of stress and hassle. Point Blank Safety Services provides certified, uniformed police officers for a full suite of armed guard services. Don't leave the safety of your project to chance. If you're ready to make sure safety truly comes first for your next project, then visit us at pointblanksafety.com.
You're listening to Donnie Success Champions, where I believe everybody is on a journey. Life is all about the stories you can tell and teach later. You're going to hear the stories of people who have overcome hardships, failures in life to find success along their journey. Hey guys, it's Fridays with Donnie. I'm your host, Donnie Boivin, and this is Donnie Success Champion. And on today's show, it's the 10 things you can do to find your personal inspirations. When you think about finding your inspiration, it's kind of a fickle beast. And I know there's days that I move through life trying to, stay ahead of it, keep the head in the game and keep things moving forward. And, some days it's tougher than others. It really is, because it requires so much mental focus to keep your mind focused on the right things. And, inspiration is something that's thrown around quite often. And I think, the biggest difficulty is people oftentimes just don't know how to inspire themselves. They don't know how to, in a moment, change their mindset to find some inspiration. You hear things like writer's block. You hear things like, I'm just not motivated. Or you hear things like, I just have no idea what my next move should be. And I think it comes from a lot of areas, but definitely the biggest area it comes from is a lack of attempts. They try one thing and it didn't work. They didn't get inspired. So they just stop trying. Then they find usually some form of escapism to go in a different direction. So some form of a thing to help them get their mind off of it. And what sucks about that is when you go for that escapism, and, escapism can be alcohol, it can be drugs, it can be, conversations, it can be video games, it can be a cup of coffee, it can be a phone call, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, any of those type of things. When you go for that escapism versus inspiring yourself through your own means, you lose a growth opportunity. You lose a chance to go a little bit bigger on you. So what I want to walk you through is 10 things that I do to help myself get inspired on a regular basis. I don't have a whole lot of times when I struggle with finding inspiration, but it does hit every once in a while. There's a couple of things that I know that I can absolutely do to kick it into overdrive. And that's what I want to talk about. That's the stuff that I know that if I do, I can kick it up a notch. So hold on for the ride. It's going to be fun as we talk about finding inspiration. So number one, this is hands out the number one way I find inspiration on a regular basis? And if you've ever listened to one of my Friday shows, you're going to not be surprised by this answer, because number one is to freak yourself out. And here's what I mean. When you're sitting there and you feel uninspired, you feel unmotivated, you feel like the world's crashing around you, man, do something that scares the hell out of you. And I'm not talking about jumping out of a plane or doing something physically scary. I'm talking about doing something that's mentally scary. Like jump on and do a Facebook Live or do an Instagram Live. Pick the phone up and call somebody that is in your mind like almost impossible to get in touch with. Do something that just doesn't come naturally to you. And here's what I think happens. I think when you do that thing that scares you out, it gets your whole body into it. I mean, I love that goosebump feeling. I love that where your body's like, oh my God, and then intensity comes with it. Man, when you freak yourself out, your whole mind and everything gets so focused on that thing that it starts, I think, triggering other parts of your brain to go, okay, we got to put all of our effort here. And when you get that focus, you start getting creative. Because here's why. That thing that's freaking you out, that thing that's shaking you up, that thing that is totally making you lose your shit is forcing your body to come up a way to do it easier, to get around it, to do it a different way. And that's what gets those creative juices flowing. Right? They say necessity is the mother of all invention, but when you're going after something that's freaking you out, your whole mind is like, okay, how can I make this easier? How can I do this differently? How can I change this up? How can I move this in a different direction? And let me tell you, when you start moving things in a different direction, that's when things get fun. I mean, now look, somebody's already carved the path of doing whatever freaks you out, right? Whatever that thing is, somebody's already do it. So you go and, learn and listen to what somebody else has already done. And that's cool. That's great. That's gravy. I am a firm believer in getting in and figuring out yourself, because you'll learn more in rapid succession. You're going to learn, of course, the absolute wrong way of doing it, which is how you know you're learning anything is by screwing it up. But you'll really learn how to trigger, the steps in play to make it successful. As long as you don't mind getting punched in the face by life, you can keep moving forward with it. But this only works if you keep going and you keep trying, because what most people do is they start and they're like, okay, that sucks, I'm out. And then they don't do anything with it. And, you shut down all creativity. You shut down all inspiration because you're not learning in that process. And, for me, once I get my mind moving around the topic of how do I do this? How do I, dude, I'm all in. I just know me. And it's like I saw that I could create a Alexa flash briefing to where I could take content from this podcast and put it into 1 to 2 minute snippets that every morning somebody can say, Alexa, play my flash briefing, and my 2 minute motivational clip will pop up. Sorry if I just turned on your Alexa, by the way. Alexa, stop. Right. But, the funny thing with it is in doing that, I had to go learn a whole new skill set. Now, sure, I could have hired somebody out for that, but I know me, and if I don't learn it, I can't tell somebody else how to do it, even if I don't have a general knowledge of it. So I had to go through the process. Now I want to create a couple more skills, but I'm going to pay somebody else to build those things because I know what I can tell them what I need done, right, on a regular basis. And that's just a very, very, very cool thing. So number one, the first thing I want you to do to find inspiration is freak yourself out. Do that thing that scares the hell out of you. And I keep rattling on this, but it's the truth. You got to move straight towards your fear So your whole body gets in the game, you know, and you can step into that emotion and get those creative juices flowing. Absolutely awesome. Absolutely awesome. Okay. Number 2 is spend time creating. Spend time developing. I know for me, when I set out to do these Friday episodes, I will usually go through my social media, specifically my Facebook group, which is called the same name as the show, Donnie Success Champions. Come hang out with us, by the way. But in that group, I'll spend a lot of time to see what was posted, what was put out there, what kind of content and information out there. And that content from that group is usually what forms my, Friday shows. And it's great because it gives me a continual supply of information that I can put out here for you guys. And when I see a really, cool comment that's getting a lot of actions and interactions with it, I'm like, okay, that's going to be the Friday show. Now how do I build the show up? So for like this show, I'm like, okay, people like list. Inspiration is something that people want help with. Cool. Let's come up with the 10 things I do to get inspired and use it out there. And here's the cool thing. Once you start creating, and it doesn't have to be content like this show, it can be creating anything, your juices start flowing and your mind gets really into the game and inspiration comes. So like sitting down for the show, I just sat down and go, okay, what do I do to get inspired? And, I started with the list and then I started some bullet points and I'm like, wow, I actually got some cool things here that I think people are really going to geek out on with me. And I found myself writing more and more and more. And I finally had to get to a point where I had to stop because I was putting so much into it. I'm like, all right, just go. Grab the mic, grab your notes, and go. And that's where inspiration kicks in. Because what happens is you get blocked by some sort of emotional state. Maybe something's happened to you. Maybe something's, been said, done, and you've internalized it. And if you stay in that dark spot where you keep swirling down, then it just keeps compounding negatively on you. So instead, go create something. If you're into leather work, go create leather. If you're into painting, go paint. If you're a podcaster, go create your next show. If you're a teacher, go put a new curriculum together. If you're a hobbyist like my dad and you play with trains, go work on the train layout. If it's electronics your thing, go, computers your thing, whatever, go build a new app, a new program. Just start creating, because what you're going to find is you're going into that negative state of mind because you're not trying to inspire yourself. You're feeding that negative mind monster, and it's pushing you down into those dark places. But when you start creating, yeah, there may be some frustrations that pop in, but the juices start flowing. And I often, when I'm, creating, will have something next to me that I'm working on, because I'll find as I start creating things, inspiration for that other thing that I couldn't figure out usually comes to the table. So let's say I'm writing an article or I'm working on some new content piece and I get stuck on, okay, what would be the next best thing to say here? What would be the next best thing to do here? I'll have that next to me. So as I dive into this, and I'm starting to do the creating, I'll usually get this flash of inspiration. And that's the exact thing I need to do when, I can't figure it out. It's really, really, really cool. And part of it is you've got to know what you geek out on. You've got to know what you're really into. Here's a complete example. So literally last night I gave a speech at a investment group of angel investors. It was a lot of fun. Good group of people, good mix of people. But I had an hour and 45-minute drive home, and it was dark. It was 11 o'clock at night, or 10:30. 11 o'clock by the time I got home. And I knew it was going to be a long drive. And I knew that I had two choices. I could turn on an audiobook, and that would have worked. I could have listened to a story. Or I could geek out at the moment. Well, what I did, now don't do it the way I did it, but I turned on, YouTube and found some Harry Potter stuff. Yep, this is real. Found some Harry Potter stuff. And I, started listening to some people who really geek out on Harry Potter and was learning a whole lot of things about the movie. Now, here's the funny thing about that is, I mean, for an hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes, I had my phone turned over, so I couldn't see the video while I was driving, of course, but the audio played through my car. And I listened to this fan theory stuff on all this Harry Potter. And I learned so much about Harry Potter that I had no idea about, like Dumbledore's upbringing and Grindelwald and all that. Dude, it was so awesome that I didn't get tired or nothing on the drive home. I was so into the content. And so part of that is if you know what you geek out on, you can know what you can go create. Because part of me, started thinking about, man, could I create a Harry Potter podcast? Could I do that? And then I'm like, okay, how do I use what I just learned in this lesson on my current podcast? I mean, it's just wild how inspiration comes once you start creating, especially when you start creating around something you completely geek out on. So 2, spend time creating. 3 is a really fun one too, is listen to biographies. I often wonder, are people really as badass as their biographies say? Because when you listen to or read somebody's biography, I'm more apt to listen than read, but when you listen to somebody's biography, you can realize, holy shit, that person's been through a lot. Holy cow, that person's done a lot of things. And what's interesting is most biographies don't start off with, so I was the king of the world. I owned everything. I was wealthy as hell. And life just got better from there. Nope. Most stories start off with, I grew up in a really poor family. We did, struggle to get food. Mom worked 3 jobs. Dad worked 12 jobs. I raised my brothers and sisters, right? You usually get some sort of rough beginning. And what I love about those rough beginnings, and I don't want people to go through rough beginnings. Well, that's not true. I do. Because I know if you can survive a rough beginning, dude, you can take on anything. But what I love about those rough beginnings is I can associate my story with theirs. Right? I can associate with what I've been through. And when you hear somebody's biography, you can realize that, dude, they're just the same as me. They just kept pushing forward. And life might have punched them in the face several times, but they didn't care. They just keep moving forward. And that there's parts of that story that don't get told, like, how frustrated they were that nothing was moving and, all the shit they went through. But at some point it starts turning, it starts changing. One of the last biographies I read, and it's weird, it's a biography, but it's done more in story form. It's A Year or Yes by Shonda Rhimes. And, I love the fact that she started off being so introverted and playing with stuff in her closet and creating these imaginary worlds. And it wasn't till years later that her sister pointed out that she always said no to everything, that she decided that for 1 year she was going to say yes, and how much it changed her life. And I thought, crap, should I put that in my life? Right? So should I start saying yes more often to things? And it's when you read biographies, you get to hear that point in somebody's life when they've made a choice to move forward and do something. And for me, it inspires the hell out of me because I'm like, man, that dude just kept going forward. And I think the movie is called Unbroken. The story is called Unbroken, about the gentleman in, I think it's World War II, that ends up in a concentration camp after their plane is shot down, and the hell he went through. I wish I could remember the name of the guy who the book is about, because it is flipping one hell of a story. And for me, all I can think of is, man, if that guy, could go through all of that and still come out on top of the world and keep moving forward, holy cow. I know it's called Unbroken. I pulled it up on my phone because I wanted to find out who the book is about. But literally, this guy goes through some. I mean, you got to go listen to that biography, because when you hear what he went through, holy crap! And it's those things like, man, if they can go through all of that, then my little piddly problems of what I'm dealing with right now, they're no big whoop, right? They're no big thing. So number 3, go listen to biographies. They'll inspire the hell out of you. Number 4, change your circle. And I harp on this a lot, and it's not my theory, it's not my original thought, but you become who you surround yourself with, and you become who you are influenced by. So take a hard inventory of the people that you're around on a regular basis and ask yourself if they're really going for it. Are they really challenging life? Are they really stepping up their game to do something more with their life? Or are they a misery loves company type person? Like, last night, sitting with a bunch of angel investors was pretty cool. I mean, listening to these guys' stories of how they inspire, or I mean, it's not inspire, but how they look at investment strategies, how they look at different companies to invest in and whatnot. It was a cool conversation because I'm not in that game yet. I'm not, doing investments into companies and things. And these guys are. And listen to talk about the questions they ask and how do they analyze, the different things they invest in and whatnot is really, really a cool thought process. And, when you surround yourself with people that are looking to up their game, in those instances, you can't help but have bigger conversations. You can't help to get more inspired. And even though I was the guy speaking in front of the room, I was soaking up the information from the people around me because it's knowledge I can use later. It's not something that I talk about a whole lot. And I was really, really getting inspired by these guys. I'm like, okay, I got to keep up in my game because, I want to invest $250,000 in a business. I want to invest, $25,000 here and bet on some technology or bet on some people or some ideas. And, these guys were talking about autonomous vehicles and autonomous, warehouse forklifts, and just some really, really, really cool things. And I'm like, man, I could geek out on some of this stuff. And knowing the full well that I would have to learn how to be an investor in that type of game. But I was inspired as hell to take my company to a little bigger level because I want to do that kind of stuff. I want to get into that kind of game. And that's just a really, really, really fun thought process. And I know when I am not around people that are really trying to go for it, it really turns off the juices. It turns off the I want to do more thought process, which just makes life really, really, really tough because I got so many things I want to accomplish and do. And when I'm sitting around not going for it, it usually has to do with what I'm influenced by at the moment. And it usually means I'm hanging out with other people who are not trying to go big as hell. And, I love a lot of my friends and family and people I hang out with, but I have to really be careful with, how I'm letting them influence my thought process because as I continue to rise with my business and do more things, it gets very tough to keep moving forward if I'm not finding inspiration. And part of that inspiration is by recognizing that other people are already doing it. Other people are already going for it. And in watching them go for it, I get inspired. So number 4, change your circles. Number 5, celebrate your wins. Man, this is a big one. It's oftentimes that I'll watch somebody who's accomplished something and then they immediately play it off as nothing. And it's very, very, very interesting. So let me set up a scenario for you. So imagine that a friend walks up to you and they say something along the lines of, man, I just landed the largest deal of my life. And you look right back at them and go, wow, that's so awesome. I'm so proud. I hope you're excited. And they go, no big deal. Or you look at somebody and say, man, I've been watching your story. I've been watching your journey. I've been watching what you do. And I gotta tell you, I'm just inspired by everything that you've done. And they go, thanks. And you could tell they don't mean it. That's the thing that frustrates the hell out of me. Because when you downplay your wins and you don't celebrate them, you take away the magic behind them. I'm not saying go out and brag about what you've done, but I'm telling you to find people that will root you on. I mean, here's a real for instance for me. I got selected to go speak at the New Media Summit as one of the icons of influence in February. And I'll be sharing the stage with 40 other podcasters to, talk about my journey, my story, my podcast. And, there's 150 people who have paid a good chunk of money to be in this audience. Dude, I'm stoked about that. I love the fact that I'm getting to go to Florida to speak in front of a room and an audience. I'm celebrating the hell out of that. But if I looked at that and said, it's just another thing, then it's very tough to enjoy that. And when you don't embrace those wins, you actually are turning off inspiration. Because the more I think about that win for me, and it's not bragging, I'm just proud, and when I think about that win for me, I'm like, all right, cool. What stories do I tell? What should I, and I not stressing out over those stories, it's just, I want to go and deliver it all. I want to inspire. I want to, talk. I want to meet new friends and new people. I mean, it gets my creative juices flowing. And, I get freaking inspired by that. And I'm like, okay, where else can I go get some wins? Where else can I get some cool speaking engagements? Where else can I get involved? And man, that's inspiring. And here's the cool thing is when I put that post out in my Facebook group, the Donnie Success Champion group, the responses that came back to me were like adding fuel to my, internal fire, because people were like, dude, that's awesome. Proud of you. I love that. I was just eating that up. And it was so cool to have people celebrate with me. But, I wasn't always that way. I mean, I was definitely the guy that if I won, it wasn't, a celebration. It was, I'm doing that. And I've been working my ass off with my company to figure this all out, and I'm finally getting some cool wins. And don't downplay that. Don't look at that and say, that's not what we're going to do. I mean, embrace it, enjoy it, and take people along the ride with you, because, man, it's amazing to celebrate the wins. It's even more amazing to stack them up and keep adding them up, because you're going to get punched in the face by life quite often, and celebrating those wins makes those punches in the face a lot softer blows. So, number 5, celebrate your wins. Number 6, this is one of my pet peeves, and I will harp on it for the rest of my life, and it's very simple. Turn off the crap. Turn off the things that are demotivating you. Number 1, turn off the flipping news. It is not helping you. It is actively moving you in the wrong direction. Think about it. How many stories do you hear on the news that are positive? Hardly any. It is crap. It is depressing. It is horrible. Turn it off. I haven't had the news allowed to be played in my household in over 12 years. And, I've got it down to such that if I walk into somebody else's house, family, friends, and I walk in, they turn it off because they know I'm about to raise a ruckus. I am not feeding my mind with that bullshit. with that depressing, negative stuff. And frankly, I don't care, right? People are like, well, how do you find out information? I find it out, right? You hear it in conversations and stories. But I really just don't give a shit, about all of that stuff. And people are like, well, you got to know what's going on in the world. I said, I got to go know what's going on that's affecting my business. And you know what? You get into enough business conversations and wow, you figure shit out. And it's amazing. It's like social media. People are like, social media is so negative and so depressing and so blah. No, it's not. You've made your feed negative and depressing, right? Because somebody made a negative post about politics or whatever else, and you clicked on that post, interacted with that post, and Facebook said, oh, they're into this. Let's sell them more of that post. And it has nothing to do with the platform itself. It's 100% to do with how you're consuming it. Dude, my Facebook feed is filled with inspirational speakers and badasses and people with inspiring stories. And, I don't spend hardly any time on the Facebook main wall, if you will. All of my time is spent in groups around other people that are geeking out on the same stuff that I geek out on, or my groups where I'm trying to inspire and lead and help people to, change their lives and go for more. So I don't see all the negative stuff. I don't see all the horrible politics and everything else. It doesn't cross my feed because Facebook knows that I don't give a shit about all that. And so they don't show it to me because they want me to stay on Facebook. So if your feed is filled with negativity and whatnot, it's 100% your fault. And, if you're trying to find inspiration, all that you do is feeding yourself with crap. I mean, how many people start the day off by turning on depressing ass news, and then they go to work, and then they come home and end their day with depressing news? I mean, it's absolutely crazy. And 90% of the people I ask, I'm like, why do you do it? And the response is, I've always done it, which makes no sense to me. If you're frustrated in life, why keep doing the things you've always done? Change it up. Go listen to inspiring podcasts. Go listen to motivational videos. Go find people that are trying to make a difference in the world and a positive impact on the world and listen to them. Right? And it goes back to changing your circles. You become what you consume. And if you can't get to a higher group of people, go find them online, because there's people and there's technology nowadays that allows you to get and do anything you want and go anywhere you want, be around anybody you want. I mean, no longer is that book 6 Degrees of Separation a real thing. It's more like 2 or 3. Man, you can be just completely change your influences, and inspiration is going to step in and throw a party. Because when you feed that negativity in your mind, you actually are shutting down the mind from wanting to move forward and wanting to do more in life. Guys, news media is going to die. And I don't care about any political slants. News media is going to die because it's not being consumed. And the only people that are still consuming that stuff is, the people who aren't going for it in life. There's not a soul that is making an impact on the world, changing lives and going great that turns the news on. It's just not a thing. And I'm not even going to bring up newspapers, because who the hell reads a newspaper, right? So you have to think about, what you're consuming. And people ask me all the time, they're like, what about sports radio? And I'm like, well, is that sports radio actively inspiring you? Are you learning how to become better and greater? And I would challenge whether, that's good for you, because at the end of the day, if it's not helping you grow, then what the hell's the point? I get it. Every once in a while, you need some decompressed time, and, watching football, baseball, soccer, hockey, rugby, tennis, whatever you're into, geek out on. I'm totally down with that. But in between those bouts of getting that downtime and really getting into that stuff, man, go find some things that do inspire the hell out of yourself and keep consuming. I mean, I think it's Zig Ziglar said it best is, whatever you're reading now is shaping who you're going to be 10 years from now. And, you must continue to consume and keep moving forward with it, because when you feed crap, you become crap. That's all there is to it. You've got to continue to inspire yourself by just turning off the crap. So number 6, turn off the crap. Number 7 is something that I've really had to work on for me. And it's knowing that the easiest thing to do is not the best thing. It sucks because, there's a lot of things in my business that I just enjoy doing because they're fun and because they're easy. And doing those things don't get me to moving forward, and they don't help me find inspiration. And because I'm just in the moment. And here's a reel, for instance. So I was getting my new t-shirt line out to go up and, start selling t-shirts with the podcast stuff on it. And I had 2 choices. Choice number 1 is I could sit down and design these t-shirts myself, and which I could do. I'm not a graphic designer, but I can come up with stuff decently enough that people would probably embrace what I've done, or I can outsource it. So I outsourced it. And interestingly enough, designing the t-shirts would have been an easy thing to do. Outsourcing and picking the vendors with a little bit more risk to it, but I did. And when I saw what the designers did when they came back with, oh man, 2 things happened. 1, I was inspired because I made the right choice, obviously, because they were badass designs. But 2, I was so proud of these designers and what they came up with on my brand and my thoughts. And it was wicked. It was really freaking cool to see what they were able to do with my brand and put it on shirts. And I was inspired to come up with more designs. So I reached back out to them and said, let's do more, because I was so geeking out on their obvious passion for creating and design. It was just really, really, really cool. And I thought that it was the right move. So I was inspired to go find more people that can help me with things like that. And I realized that I get more inspired by watching other people succeed. It was just a really, really cool thing, and so knowing that the easier thing to do is not necessarily the best thing to do has been tough, because it would have been easier for me just to quickly sit down and draw it, but I would have ate up a couple hours of a good work day. And in doing that, I stop my business from moving forward, because that time I should spend, creating and doing more with, my clients and prospects and the likes. And if I'm sitting there creating, I don't have that time to be doing the things I need to be doing. So number 7, just realizing that the easiest thing to do is not necessarily the best thing to do. Number 8, give back. Absolutely, absolutely give back. And this is an interesting one for me, because I love hearing my name associated with something I've done to help out a nonprofit or an individual. And what I had to realize is when I was enjoying somebody saying, hey, Donnie did this, or Donnie donated that, or Donnie did that, I was doing the donations for me, not necessarily for the nonprofit, which is an interesting insight on myself. I was doing it so somebody would say, hey, I appreciate that, right? Because that felt good. What I had to do was to start donating for them. And whoa, that was a game changer, man. When I could give from a place of doing something to help them, ooh, now the inspiration comes. And I recently had a neighbor that was injured fell off a ladder and is going to not be able to work for a while because of surgeries that are coming up. And, he's the breadwinner for his family. And another neighbor reached out to me and told me what happened and said, hey, we're kind of picking up a collection. Would you want in? And I immediately said yes. And two things happened. One, knowing I'm in a place where I could do that felt amazing. That my business has gotten to a point that I can afford to do a donation like that was just awesome. Two, they'd asked me to put it on an envelope so they know where it came from. And you know what? I just handed them the cash and said, I don't need to know where it comes from. And that felt really, really, really good to do because I knew I was doing it for the right reasons. I was doing it because they were in need. And at no point of it was it about me and what I've done. And man, that got me just so internally fired up because I was doing it really for them. And it wasn't out of sympathy. It was out of empathy, right? And because sympathy doesn't really help anybody, but empathy does. And I still feel good about the fact that I could help out somebody like that. And it wasn't enough to take them through their hard times by any means, but it'll help. And that's the whole point of it. It will help them on their journey. And that just made me feel good. So number 8 is literally give back. Number 9, don't listen to Debbie Downer. I know this sounds like change your circles, but man, the caveat to this one is you need to evaluate your input from people. And remember this, man, misery, misery, misery loves company. And people want you to fail. People want you to not succeed. And it's 100% because they're jealous. And dude, I'm not pulling punches on this one. People will walk up to you all the time and they may say things like, hey, this isn't going to work. Maybe you shouldn't put in so many hours. Maybe you shouldn't do this. Maybe do this. And that advice is coming from their own self-doubts. It's coming from their own negative thoughts, and they're pissed off that they haven't been able to do the things they watch you do. So if they can knock you down a notch, they feel better about themselves. So don't listen to the Debbie Downers. Don't listen to the naysayers, right? And realize and acknowledge that they're speaking, but then bat the damn thing away and keep moving forward. It's amazing to me how I've been lucky enough, and I'm completely grateful for the number of people that have walked up and said, I'm so proud of what you've done, and I'm so proud of what you've accomplished. Man, it's such a cool feeling because I just know I've cultivated a great group of fans and followers that have embraced me on this ride, man. And I love it. I mean, I ran into some friends last week that I hadn't seen in quite a while, and the massive hugs that I got, and the people that just looked me dead in the eye and told me how proud of what I've done was so cool. And I love it when people come up and tell me their wins. I love it when people are excited, and you can see it in their eye that they're excited that they get to tell me what's working, what's winning in their business. Man, I love that. And those people, when they give me advice and they tell me things, man, I'm in. I love it. Give me more. Give me more. But you get around other people that are constantly the life is tough, that maybe you should go get a job. Maybe you should go back to work. Maybe you should. Dude, that's on them. That's their shit they're dealing with, not you. Right? That's their tough times that they're going through, not you. Screw those people. Right? Turn it off. And if better, get them out of your life. Because when people are telling you you're not good enough, fast enough, strong enough, it has nothing to do with you. It's 100% them dealing with their own shortcomings. And they're jealous of what you've accomplished and are trying to make you back down to their level so they can get some sort of gratitude of, well, see, I shouldn't go because they couldn't do it. Right? It's so asininely stupid, but people do it all the time. So really, really, really simple. Number 9, don't listen to the Debbie Downers, man. Don't listen to the people that are giving you advice from their own bad spot in life, right? Turn it off and go find the people that are rooting you on and cheering you on. That's where things get fun. Number 10, you want to get inspired? Then do number 10. It's a badass Tim McGraw song as well. Live Like You're Dying. And man, this is one that you should pull in on a regular basis. And I've employed it myself, where I'm like, damn it, I got to do this, and I don't know how to do it. And I just throw the question out there now. The question is, well, what if your life depended on figuring this out? And it's this weird thing happens to me when I do that. You know, it's like my whole body's like, all right, let's do this. Right. And so I'll pull the chair up to the desk and I will change my body style and I get engaged, right, on whatever I'm working on. And it's amazing, simple mind shift. And, you know, I've done the what if my life depended on this? And I've done, you know, if tomorrow was my last day, would this thing I'm working on matter? And, dude, those questions are inspirational game changers. And here's why. Oftentimes we get stuck in minutia, right? We get stuck in just doing stuff because we're not thinking about, you know, how to progressively move forward with it. We're just doing the motions. And what I've found is when I can challenge that emotional thought base and I can challenge that line of thinking by asking a simple question, it's an absolute game changer. So what I want you to do is find a game-changing mantra for you, and feel free to borrow mine. You know, is if my life depended on it, would I figure this thing out? Or the other one is simply, you know, if tomorrow was my last day, wasn't going to live in this world anymore, would this matter? And you'll be surprised how much this kicks in and gets the inspirational juices flowing so you can progress and move forward. It's a lot of fun. So, you know, 10 things to find, you know, inspiration. Here's how I want to leave you on this note for this week's episode is every day is really your shot, and every day could be your last, right? Inspiration comes from inside of you. Like motivation, it's usually kicked on by action, and you've got to do, and then motivation and inspiration will kick in. You've got to do something. So take one of these 10 and make a commitment that you're going to do this. You're going to get engaged with this and, you know, get prepared to do some cool, inspirational game changing in your life. You know, I'm having fun on this journey. I'm love doing this, and I love coming up with this content for you guys every Friday. It's really one of my favorite things to do now, and I love the you know, the emails and comments you guys send back to me. And if you got more, send them to Donnie at DonnieBoivin.com. I respond to every email I get. You know, so any of your comments or questions, feel free to send to me, or, you know, come hang out in the Facebook group, Donnie Success Champions, and come hang out with a bunch of badasses. I mean, if you want to change your circle and get around people that are going for it, man, come on, and you know, rise up with us and let's go have some fun and come hang out together. So, but guys, you know, as you're going about the journey, realize it's a journey. It's all about the stories you can tell and teach later. I mean, it really, really, really is. Have a lot of fun in life. Keep moving forward. And, you know, remember, it's not how hard you can hit. It's about how hard you can take a hit and keep moving forward. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you. Later.
Thanks for
for listening to Donnie Success Champions podcast. If you'd like to hear more about our current guest today, or if you'd like to hear stories from our other guests on the show, come hang out with us on our website at successchampspodcast.com. I really appreciate you tuning in. If you need to reach out to me for any reason, you can catch me at Donnie@DonnieBoivin.com.